is being broadcast by Milford TV. There are members of the Milford Daily News and the Town Crier in attendance. If anybody would like a copy of tonight's meeting, at the end of the meeting, please let any member know. Good evening and welcome. The first agenda item is the approval of the school committee meeting minutes. Can I have a motion from John? Second by Joe. I have one abstention on Mr. Harrison. All in favor? Unanimous. The next agenda item is announcements, correspondence, and distributions. Does anybody have any announcements and correspondence or distributions? Mr. Harrison?
Just one thing, I actually had a, and I'm sure many other members may have received it as well. I received a letter in the mail from a group of parents that were very concerned regarding the JV football team and the JV football program at the high school. The concern that came out of it was really one of about the fact that the JV football program was canceled seemingly abruptly and with limited or very little communication to the parents and to the public about that. That was really what I got from the letter. There was the concern, obviously, of the program, number one, and really what I got from it was the parents were still left not to understand why the program was canceled, number one, and number two, their concerns were really around, why wasn't there more communication that was sort of put forward for that? So it was a piece that I wanted to make sure I brought up. I did see, obviously, it was signed as concerned parents. I do understand that, in order for the MIA, in order to go forward with any level of formal investigation, we're not able to do that with an unsigned letter, which is unfortunate from an MIA formality perspective. However, I think as a school family and as a school department, I would say we owe it. We owe our parents and we owe our student athletes and we owe our community members at least an understanding of why the program was canceled, and better and stronger communication, more upfront around what's happened with this program, and really taking this under consideration and taking this as a next step forward. That when there are changes that need to be made, we know that we can't obviously foresee everything, but I would ask that Dr. McIntyre and Mr. Consigli and certainly Peter through the athletic department really take this into consideration and think about what that process will be going forward. If in the event we have to do some changes that are going forward, what that communication is going to look like in as much in advance to the parents and explaining the why behind it. That was really what I got from this letter yeah, they're concerned about the program itself, but it was really more than that. It was really about not understanding why and not really feeling that they were communicated with in an effective way. So
Okay.
I would ask that we really, Craig, if we can make sure we take that back and really take that moving forward of what that process looks like. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know. What is our process if we have to cancel a program mid-season? It's going to happen. But I would ask that we really do look at that moving forward, and ask Peter to really look at that as he thinks about his handbook moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
I
Joe?
just wanted to clarify a couple things. So the letter, the program was not canceled. There's an abbreviated JV season, so the JV program was not canceled. And the letter was also sent with a copy of the communication that came from the head football coach. So the head football coach did communicate to parents that there would be an abbreviated season and gave an explanation as to why. So I don't want people in the public to think that, one, it was canceled, and two, it was canceled without any rationale or explanation.
No, it was the timing on it, and that was the concern that came from that. What I got from the letter, because I did see that as well. What I got from that letter was there was concern is they didn't understand why it was canceled at the quote unquote abbreviated or canceled, shortened at the time, and that it's been explained since, but that it's what the timing was for the communication around it. So I apologize if I misspoke.
Can I just add something else?
Sure.
I think it's just a good reminder to the public that if concerns do arise, it's really hard, like you said, to deal with something that's anonymous. And if people have legitimate concern, I think there are many, many ways that they can share that, whether it's through a phone call, an email, coming to invitation to speak, to talk to us. It just feels like a much more fair and equitable process for us to address the concerns and get. Every story has many sides, and there's a lot of information that we may or may not have received, and there may be more that we would want to be able to receive, but it's very difficult. We don't even know that came from parents. I mean, probably it did, but that. Right. So I think it's just a good reminder to people. If you have a question, I found the school district to be very open and receptive. You may not like the answer, but I think that they, generally try to address concerns that people have.
Any other member?
Yeah, I guess I'd just like to add maybe a little summary from the administration just on telling us exactly what happened, because I understand the concerns in the letter. I don't know that those are necessarily facts or somebody's perception, just maybe a brief summary, nothing that needs to be addressed here, just to, you know, clear up to me what the facts were when the program was canceled, when the communication was sent out. You know, there's some valid concerns there if they're accurate, so I'd like a summary, you know, maybe from whether it's a coach, whoever the administration feels.
Yeah, I had a long conversation with Peter Boucher today, and he said that he would do anything, you know, that we felt, you know, he needed to do as far as getting, you know, documentation to us.
Yeah, I'd just like a more complete understanding of what happened.
Right.
And, you know, I generally don't put much stock in anonymous letters, but I do understand when you're a parent and you have a child that's involved in the sports, you know, you may be worried about, you know, them being looked on unfavorably because you made some criticism. So, you know, I wish it weren't anonymous, but I do understand, you know, people's fears for putting their name on something.
Sure. Anybody else? Before I move on to the next agenda item, I apologize. At the beginning of the meeting, I wanted to have a moment of silence for Erica Keene's father. Erica Keene has been the secretary to the school committee for many, many years, and unfortunately, she lost her father this week. So if I could please ask everybody for a moment of silence for Erica Keene's father. Thank you. Next agenda item is invitations to speak, and we have Verona here, a high school student, to give us an update. I'll get it right. Yeah, don't worry.
I like that name though.
You do?
I wish I had that
Well,
one.
we'll have it changed then.
Okay, so representatives from Workforce Central met with students this week to discuss their career resources. Workforce Central offers a wide range of services to assist job seekers, including career development, training, and how to go about a job search. All 10th and 11th grade students took the PSAT this week. There are many benefits to taking the PSAT, including preparing students for the real SAT, entry to scholarship programs, and exploring college and career options. Students should receive their scores in January. For the freshmen, there was an introduction to the library yesterday. Mr. Molinari over there gave a presentation on independent research classes and reading programs offered at MHS, letting them know about the opportunities for intellectual freedom at their school. Officer Tiernan met with students this week to discuss the role of an SRO in a school. Students had great questions and learned more about the Milford Police Department's Exploring Law Enforcement program, which is a hands-on program open to students interested in a career in law enforcement or a related field in the criminal justice system. Students toured the Lampin Corporation, Package Steel Corporation, and Interstate Specialty Products as a part of College and Career Visit Day this week. Engineers, product managers, and business specialists shared their expertise, discussed internships, career paths, and their college tuition reimbursement programs. Students toured the facilities, saw how the machinery worked, and had lunch with various employees who discussed the daily expectations of their jobs. And students are looking forward to Spirit Week next week. Each day is dedicated to a special theme for dress up, and we will be fundraising for our veterans, and the pep rally and harvest dance will cap off the week.
Very nice. Any
Thank
members
you.
have any questions? No? What grade are you in? Sophomore?
I'm a senior, actually.
You're a senior?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So you're gonna have a busy year.
Yes. Next week especially is going to be very busy.
Yeah. Well, thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much
Good
for
job.
having me.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Have a good night. Thank
Thank you
you.
for coming out.
Next agenda item is the Milford Teachers Association Question 2. Mr. Molinari and Ms. Peterson.
Good evening.
Thanks for having us back.
No problem.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming back. I apologize to have to bring you back a second time.
No, that's okay.
Had-
I think over 170 school committees have signed on as of right now.
As of right now,
So,
and 0 have not, that have been asked.
Yeah, right.
does any member have any questions for Mr. Molinari or Ms. Peterson as far as regards to question 2 on the ballot? Everybody's had an opportunity to read all their information.
I just want to say thank you guys for coming out and giving us the presentation and certainly providing us the information. I did have an opportunity to read some of the packets and read the information that you provided to us. It was very informational in helping form a decision and
Right.
helping me to make a decision on a vote.
Awesome. You're welcome.
Seems very one-sided.
Yeah.
All right, can I have a motion? Motion, Joe?
I'll make a motion. You did a great job with the presentation.
Thanks.
A lot of helpful information, as Scott pointed out. So I'll make a motion to support the resolution against lifting the cap on charter schools.
You have a second on that motion? Jim, all in favor? We're with you.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much for coming out.
Thank you.
Great, take
Thank
care.
Thank you
Have a
both.
good night, and thanks for everything you do. Next agenda item is the Milford Middle School STEAM Project Pilot.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Donna Gomes, and this is my cohort as far as team member for the middle school STEAM pilot, Corey Howard. And we'd just like to show you what we are doing with our students. I was asked by Dr. McIntyre if I was willing to give a presentation to the school committee, and as you can see by our little table over there, our students have been busy. Most of it is hands-on projects, and we are, no, I don't want to update, so get out of there. That's what happened to the other machine. We're trying to give them an idea of what real life is like with our hands-on projects. So let me get this to get up there. We are going through the curriculum, and the topics that we're looking at, of course, is engineering design process, which you can use not only in engineering but throughout your life. We want them to discover what engineering is. It's not just a hot hat screwing a bolt somewhere. Many of my girls have learned that now. And we get into measurement because we find that they're really good at metric but don't know the standard, and unfortunately, even my son's construction business, we still buy 4x8 sheets of plywood. They need to know both. So we get into structures, we do some construction, houses, and all sorts of things. We get into transportation. Because of the new law, we get into a little bit of computer science and, of course, coding. So when they're discovering engineering, we talk about what is engineering, types of engineering. Our sixth graders are being introduced right now to engineering careers. After asking them a few questions, we have them research a career that they think they might be interested in, and that's all part of the career readiness. They also have the 8 steps of the engineering design process, which are kind of like put together, which is problem solving, brainstorming, making a prototype, new solutions, testing, criteria and constraints. And when we finish a project, they have to, of course, do the communication part that we are all lacking in some instances, where they have to use the 8 steps, and at each step, reflect on what you did. What was the problem? How did you solve it? Were you brainstorming? So that they hand in a paper that tells me their process so that I know that they're thinking correctly. And they just finished, my 8th graders just finished redesigning their favorite snack or candy bar wrapper. And I'm dying to see those reflections. So again, we do standard and we do a little bit of metric. We do the conversions. We do real life measurements as well. We build cardboard houses, as you can see over there. We do Excel floor plans. They have to do a whole house floor plan and give us the measurements. We build bridges with whatever we can. We design paper bridges, as well as, you can see one of the models over there, which is popsicle stick and cardboard bridges. We do towers, either straw towers, paper cup towers, or this year we're going to try a little newspaper tower to see how high they can build it depending on their structure. And these are just some of the pictures of the projects that we have done with the kids. We also do transportation. We've done wind-powered cars, rubber band cars, mousetrap cars. We've designed watercraft. I had a big trough with water in it, and they had to make it float, and then they used either wind power or some other type of power in order to get the boat to actually move. And then we've done some wonderful air stuff with them, with parachutes. They got to drop Bobby off the balcony. And they've done tetrahedron kites. You can see a sample that's up there. We've done paper airplanes, trying to see how far they can get to my door. Foam rockets, which they enjoyed, and stomp and water rockets, which we asked the PTO to help us out with because we didn't have any money to get the water rocket and the stomp rocket stuff, and we've built whatever we could, and they nicely gave us the money to get the stuff for the water rockets. So again, these are more of their projects. The cars were done by the 5th graders last year, and their challenge was just to get it roll in a straight line, so that was consuming. If time permits, we get to, well, the typing they do all the time, but we get to the parts of the computer, telecommunications, we're looking at computer graphics. Sometimes we have them draw things on the computer. We get into the hour of code we do every year. They look at Code Combat for the JavaScript and Code Academy, Khan Academy. These are all parts of the websites that we use to get them used to coding. We would like to have more time, and as time allows, we would like to get into manufacturing, food preparation and preservation, electronics, communication, biotechnology. A big thing for me is pollution, having to do with the the environment. And on the internet, we can see some of the things that are ruining our environment, and the kids get interested in researching those things, like our Pacific Trash Island. Also energies, they have to know about the non-renewable energy and what they can do to push towards the renewable energy. And these are all things that we'd like to get to, but we have time constraints. So now I'm getting to our issues. The first thing is we see students 2 days in a 6-day cycle, 42 periods each. By the time you get them in, get them settled, and get them out, it's about an hour per cycle every 6 days. When I added them up last year, which was 30 cycles per year, they get pulled from testing. They get pulled from us for field trips, for extra help, sometimes for some other project that they have. And so we saw them approximately for the entire year, 25 hours. We are trying to pack as much as we can into the curriculum as both Corey and I develop the curriculum for the middle school, and it gets really hard. The other issue we have is budget. We have none. We've begged, borrowed, and steal. We've bought things ourselves. We have asked the students to bring in recyclables. Anything, you can see most of the stuff we've used is stuff that we either brought in ourselves or they've been able to bring in. So it's become quite a problem. We have a limited amount of tools. You know, we usually bring in our own from home to help them with that. And one of the biggest things that many of the schools have that we do not is a makerspace. My room is a computer lab where I literally pulled the desks around myself last year to move everything over with Corey's help to give me enough area so that they could build, at least without having to go out to the hall to be able to do that. So my room was not really set up for this, but we've done it. I don't want to get rid of the computers because we use that for research and we use that for the reflections. And when they're not sure exactly what's going on, we use it for them to go out and take a look at what somebody else has done. So, if we had some money, we could buy some hand tools, hot glue guns. We're trying to do hydraulic kits. We've managed to get our hands on some hosing and some syringes so that we can actually do a little mechanical arm with them. Motors, which we need to do a lot of movement. PVC pipe, we actually bought some last year ourselves to put some rocketry things together. The jowl store items, I mean, we could go in there and spend a small fortune just being able to get the craft sticks and other things that these students need. I bought ping pong balls this year because they're going to put together trebuchets, catapults, and ping pong balls I thought were the safest thing for them to be shooting. Legos, we have none. We have no batteries or wire or tape, and that's just to name a few things that we could use. A makerspace, what is a makerspace? It's a physical location that we can take the kids, that has the tools, has the safety equipment, has storage, which we need badly, to be able to put their projects together. And because we only see them 2 days, if you've got a 5-day project, what do? Between the two of us, we have 500 students. Where do we put these projects? Even if we put them in groups, we're looking at every space we have and pray that nobody steps on some of the things. So this is where we could set up project-based, real-life learning, like a shop. We can't build in the classrooms. It's very difficult. Like I said, I rearranged my room just to get them up off the floor. I have a couple of tables in there. We still have to use the floor area. They need hand-on buildings with the proper tools. We don't have those tools. They have to share 2 glue guns, and I have an average of 25 to 28 students in a class. And if we had a makerspace, it could be used by other classes. Science could go in there, math could go in there, art could go in there and use the tools and use the area. So that's what we were trying to at least bring to your attention tonight. We really enjoy being with these kids, getting them to understand that this is a real life situation. One of the things I say to my kids, you can either be the person at McDonald's that the robot replaces, or you can be the person building the robot. It's your decision. Because the jobs that were there 20 years ago are not going to be there when you're out to the work field. We need to bring them on up to the real world. So I thank you for your time. I hope that this was enlightening. And certainly email with me with any questions you have. That's dgomes@milfordma.com, and I'll be glad to address any questions that you have.
Before I open it up for discussion, could I ask a favor of you?
Sure.
Could you actually send that presentation to all of us?
You got it.
That would be great.
I thought about printing it out, but then I said, I don't know how many people are there.
Just so we have it, so we can review it ourselves.
Absolutely.
And with that, I'll open it up to discussion. Scott?
Thank you for asking that, Mr. Chairman, as well, because it's, believe it or not, even though it's only really the end of October, we're actually already starting to think about budgets for next
Right.
year, so that's important to think about. It tells you how long it takes to go in through it. I know
I
you're
know.
already thinking about it as well. A couple of things that I would ask, just sort of your opinion on, because you know what your needs are far better than we're going to. When you talk about the Makerspace, do you have a proposal for space that is available that you're aware of in the schools that you'd like to? And you don't need to answer that right now if you can't, but if you can think about that, when you email this, if you can include that, that would be very helpful.
I will, as well as pictures.
Excellent, thank you. What would go into that from a cost perspective? If you have an analysis, if not, that's something that we can obviously, through building administration.
Mm-hmm.
But then really just, a piece that's concerning to me is some of just the basic supplies, knowing what we go through for budgets every year and some of the asks that we get. And I'll be candid with you, I don't remember whether we got these requests or not. Knowing what we got for last year and knowing what we said no to, what we were not able to accommodate and what we did accommodate, I'd be really surprised if this was on the didn't accommodate list. So I just want to make sure that we're getting that information and when it comes through budget time. And it may be that it just didn't make it to us, but when you're sending that along, that would be very helpful.
All right,
So.
I will. We were not approached last year about any type of money or anything, and then finally when we asked, we got things here and there. We went out and we bought foam to make foam rockets. They reimbursed us for that,
Okay.
For small things like that. This year, again, we have not had anyone mention to us any type of amount or any type of budget at, Stacy.
Okay.
I'm not trying to ruffle
No,
any
no.
feathers, but, it's hard to gauge. And because we're building the curriculum, our needs change from year to year. We had 5, 6, and 7 last year. This year we have 6, 7, and 8. So we've got to build a whole new curriculum for the 8th grade and kind of come up. Now they're starting with it at Woodland. So we want to be able to build on what they've done, where right now we're adding basics because our kids know nothing about this, and this is why at the 6th grade level we get them into engineering careers.
Right.
What can you do,
Yeah, and it's, again, I should have said earlier, it is amazing, the program as well. I happen to have a student that's in one of your classes, and
Aha.
he comes home and talks about it daily. And actually has been talking about the fact that this is actually where, at the ripe old age of 13, he's been talking about for the last 3 years of, no, Dad, I want to be an engineer, Since he was 10, he's 13 now. You also want to be a dinosaur. So let's put that in perspective for a little while. But, he's still, this is something that he talks about, and he talks about it a lot. So it is having an impact because I hear about it every day. I do see the real life piece. Craig, a question for you is there a CTL for STEAM?
Not right now, no.
Okay. Is it possible
Well,
that would represent, that would
Jose
speak on their
Pinto.
behalf?
So Jose Pinto is at the high school, and he's actually talked to me about how can he move down into what's going on at the middle school and what's going on at Woodland. So it has been discussed. We haven't been able to put anything in place right now.
Okay.
But I know he's certainly open to it.
Okay. That may help get some visibility around
Yeah.
budget and needs and things like
No,
that for space too.
The program's awesome. And,
It's amazing.
and for middle school kids, to get middle school kids engaged, the kinds of projects that you do, it's terrific. And I think it gets all the kids engaged and kids working together that wouldn't normally work together. So good job for that. I think it's great.
We do reflections both ways. We do them as a group
Yeah.
when they've worked on a group project, but I also switch to individual. Even though they've worked on a group project, sometimes they have to give me an individual one. So we do both. And when they come together And, you know, they come into the room, the first thing they want to know is, are we going to blow up something? Are we going to cut something? Are we going to build something? What are we doing today? And when I tell them it's a reflection, it's, we got to get through one to get to the other. So they understand that the building comes as well, and they're pretty happy. My 8th graders are going to start building the catapults, as I said, the trebuchets, and all they're going to get is a bag full of popsicle sticks, elastics, and one little bottle cap, and here you go, build one.
Awesome.
And then we also have a bullseye that they have to hit, so it's going to be projecting as well. So looking at the math part of it, how far do we have to go, how much do we have to have, so.
I think what's important, though, what you're doing is great, but what you have to do is try to build some kind of a budget that, so when the principals come before us, you know, with Mrs. Perry to set the main school budget, you know, you're on the wish list.
Okay.
And I can't promise you get everything, but you get something, it's better than nothing, or better taking money out of your own pocket. You know what I mean? But I think if you had something that you could give to the principal and say, can you please move this forward?
Yeah, we are working on the curriculum, as I said, and we're through part of the curriculum mapping only because we had to revamp it from last year, as I said. And we are going to put together a list, a budget item list for this year. And since we have none, I said we'll just put everything we want and that we need mostly, and if whatever we get, and we'll work from there. But that's what we're looking at. It's, you know, whatever we have, we're trying to use. Once they get through building, which they're not going to be happy about, their little catapult, it will have to be pulled apart and stuffed back in the bag so the next class can come and build.
I
So-
just had one question.
Sure.
You said that a lot of your room is taken up by computers right now,
Well, now you haven't seen it since I pulled it apart.
but when the carts come, if
That's
carts
going to be
come-
an issue, that if the carts come, certainly, we just came back from the Project Lead the Way.
Yeah.
We will not be able to use Chromebooks for the particular things
for
that they
that-
want
for that
downloaded.
project.
Yeah, for
I-
the Project Leads the Way, if we do take that on, but,
I guess my question is, if carts come, would that help with the Makerspace? Would that help with any of your space needs? Because now you can
it
get rid
would
of
give me a
desktops.
little bit more, but I still would have to have desks. I wouldn't want to have the cot, and, you know, I'd still have to have desks around the room for the students to sit at, but they could also build at them, which they can't now because the
Right.
tower's on the computers.
Right.
So yes, that would help some.
Okay, just that question.
Any other member? Joe?
Sorry. The other challenge you mentioned at the beginning was the scheduling.
Yes.
Do you have any ideas around how that can be improved?
We've listened to several people, and I was on the technology task force 2 years ago with Dr. Tremblay, and the different schools that we went to, we were looking at their programs and what they were doing and how they were implementing stuff. And they had a larger block than what we do. One of the schools said today that they go for one term, and then they have STEAM every day for that one term. And then they turn around and do something else for another term. So it's like an elective, and we're considered elective or specials. And I know that they are looking at the scheduling for Stacy, and they put a team together. But we've gone to this trimester, and I don't know if they want to turn around and do that, because I'm not sure that that would work for everybody else. It's very hard when you have the 2 teachers. We have 500 students apiece. We know it when grading time comes, but all of us specialists have to deal with every student in the school. It's not like we can say, well, this kid, you know, wants to take STEAM and that kid wants to take art. Everybody gets everything except the people in performing arts. They're not able to pick as many electives.
And
Because
the program that they're running, Kathy Buffalo, it's kind
And
of an
Maria.
offshoot of what Kathy Buffalo did in the 8th grade. And the way that the 8th grade ran, they would have it 3 days in a row. So they would have the tech ed is what they called it. But they'd have it 3 days in a row, and they'd have it for half a year. So they were able to do the projects, and they're not seeing as many kids all at
Right.
once, but they have that time in a row, where it's not spread out all year.
yeah, they had the 1 grade level where we have 3.
Right.
You have 3.
So it's a little more difficult.
And-
Hardest hurdles is that 18 classes all at once. And there's moments in the year where all 18 classes happen to be working on something, and it takes more than 2 class periods. So now the issue becomes, where do I put
Right.
18 classes where there's 10, 12 projects in every class? So I mean, that's a lot of projects to store. in a limited space when you have, you know, materials taking up a lot of the storage that's available to you as well. So that's sort of been one of the things is, I mean, simple shelving, but where do you put the shelving is another,
Right.
you know, so those types of those things are sort of the challenges that we're facing, really.
Well, please, when you send that information on to us, you know, send us that information as well as, you know, where you think and, you know, what you'd like to see done, just to give us some thought. Jen?
Hi, thank you
Hi.
for coming tonight. In terms of the curriculum, I know you talked about developing it.
Mhm.
It makes me a little nervous to hear about a curriculum being developed while you're working on the curriculum with the students on a daily basis. And I'm just curious, are you taking that from the curriculum standards, from science,
Absolutely.
technology, and
It's
engineering?
from both maths and the national standards.
Okay. And is there actually a documented curriculum that you're using with each of the grade levels right now, with lessons
With
that
the
are
lessons,
attached to
we
those?
are, it's documented with the standards right on the lessons we're using.
Okay. I mean, I think the only thing that I could ask is whether or not there is a CTL, and that was a great question you asked for this area. I really feel that we need to assign someone to help kind of take some leadership with this program, because you're in the trenches with kids every single day, and
Mhm.
if you don't have a person that you're directly reporting to, because the budget doesn't usually come to us from a teacher, it usually
Mhm.
comes from the building principal
Mhm.
or the department head. So, you know, I'm just wondering if there's someone in the district who could serve as a curriculum resource to make sure that this program has what it needs, because obviously your time is precious and kids are in there, and
Mhm.
it's a critical area that we need to develop our students' skill set. And the other thing I'm wondering is, are there developed curriculums that we can be looking at,
You-
that we could be playing into? Or-
I don't know if you want to speak to what you guys, you went yesterday, right? Or the
Today.
day today?
Project Lead the Way, we were in Worcester today, at Worcester
Mhm.
Polytech. And Project Lead the Way is very impressive with what they do, but it's also time-consuming and expensive. So if we were to start with the Project Lead the Way at the launch program, which is elementary, it starts K through 6, K through 5 or K through 6, K through 5. And you would have one lead teacher trained, and that teacher would come back and give the basics to the other teachers that want to use their modules. When you get to the middle school level, every teacher that teaches one of their modules, and there are 10, must be trained in that module.
Mhm.
There is no lead teacher. So if I wanted to do the space one, I'd have to be trained. If Corey wanted to do the design one, he'd have to be trained. If I want to do the design one, I have to be trained. If Corey wants to do the space one, he has to be trained. So this training can be anywhere from 3 days to a week, and it can cost up to $1,000 or more per teacher to be trained. And that becomes an issue. It is a great program. They have a lot of things that we don't have. And one of the teachers, actually her school is in Fall River, and she offered for us to come down and go through her school. She's a middle school. The first year to get the program up and running, between the materials, having the teachers trained, and they weren't all trained at the same time, and the fees that it cost to get in this program was about $9,000 just to give her the start with one grade level, and then each year they upped to the next grade level. And they are also a 6, 7, and 8 school. So there are other programs out there. We stay mostly with what, we go to the engineering education sites, and we use their standards, which are National Science Standard, as well as the math standards. And we use what they're giving us, and then we tweak it for the 2-day span or for the grade level that we're at. But it's all middle school curriculum.
Okay, great, thank you.
And I did talk to Dr. McIntyre in the last spring if they wanted a CTL at that time. And he said no, that they were just going to get through the pilot program and see how it went from there. So this is our second year with this program, and we're moving on and trying to get the kids as vested in it as we can.
Okay, well, thank you. Any other member? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
And again,
Thank
if
you.
you could not be repetitive, send that along to us. That
I
would be
will.
helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Good job.
Thank you. The next agenda item is the Milford Public Schools policy, first reading of walkers and riders. Has every member had an opportunity to review it? Yes. Are there any questions on it? Traditionally, we always have a second reading, but do you feel comfortable voting it in this evening?
Yeah, I mean, I just a quick thing, I think we, for the members of the public, because this is the first time they're hearing about it, I know we had a very lengthy discussion when we went through budget time last year with regards to can we adjust distances and
Mhm.
everything else, and what the impact is. And this is, I know the committee's aware of this is more for the viewing public. It was cost prohibitive. It was several $100,000 even just to
Yeah, I know.
change the distance for walkers. Even just the change of a half a mile in distance at the younger grades and on up. Even just within the smallest, or within the youngest grades was, I believe it was approximately $300,000 in cost just for an adjustment of a half a mile. And once we went to half a mile, it actually might as well have gone down to 0 because of the impact on the students. So, though I realize we do get a lot of phone calls about this every year. I know Andy Marcone's phone rings absolutely off the hook every fall. I know I'm not alone. I know I get a number of phone calls and emails about this, as I'm sure many of the other members do as well. It's important. It is about child safety. It is about making sure that we can provide as much transportation as is possible, where it may, but we've got to balance that as well. So we want to make sure, obviously, child safety continues to be in the forefront. I realize that for this policy, it's really more of a logistical change. It's changing the wording from 5th grade because of the changing in grades, and I realize that, but I felt there was an opportunity to make sure we did discuss the fact that we're aware that we're having 6th grader, first, kindergarten through 1st and 2nd grade, walking up to a certain distance. We do look at this every year. It is a topic of conversation, certainly in the now, been 5 years now, Mike? 5 years that I've been on the committee. It's something that we do look at every single year.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's a cost that started off at about $150,000, is now up to almost $300,000 just for adding that additional round of buses. So it is something we do continue to look at as we go through different bus contracts. But I did want to make sure we just continue to communicate with the public that it is something that is forefront on our mind is child safety. That's all I had.
Any other member? Where'd Joe go? Jim, I mean.
He's out trying to steal that bridge.
Yeah, we'll wait till we return to member. Yeah. Did everybody get the revised?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, do we want to move on to the next agenda
Yeah,
item
we'll
in the meantime?
We will do that. Okay, the next agenda item, until Jim comes back into the room so we can vote on this, is the report of the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessments. Mr. Consigli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to take a minute and talk about something that we're doing with the assistant principals this year that really we haven't done in the past. And unfortunately, the reason really why we're doing it is because assistant principals, I think, in the eyes of a lot of people, are looked at as disciplinarians, and maybe that's it. And unfortunately, that isn't really what the role is at all. And sometimes, as an assistant principal, it's very easy to play that role and then forget about all the other things that you really should be doing. So that's where we started with our first meeting is how do we change the perception of assistant principals? And yes, discipline is very important, but how do we also become instructional leaders? How do we help support the observations that principals do? How do we help write evaluations? Those type of things. Next, how do we make sure that systems are consistent across schools? So what's being disciplined at this school is the same as being disciplined, I mean, within reason, obviously, but are we having the same consequences for the same types of behaviors? Do kids move between schools and hear the same kind of language being taught? So that's part of what we're talking about. We're also engaging in instructional walks, much like we do with the admin central office team. We're doing it with assistant principals, and we're actually starting next month at Woodland, just so that all of us can get on the same page and we can talk about what good instructional practices are. How can we give feedback to teachers so that it's meaningful, so that it goes beyond the surface level and we really can move learning forward. Next, how can we change that mindset of you're the problem solver, I'm going to come to you, so that teachers don't rely so heavily on assistant principals. And this is, it really is, assistant principals sometimes are looked on as the savior, as the only person that can fix the problem, when the reality is teachers are just as capable and really can solve a lot of the problems that happen in classrooms, so they don't have to escalate to assistant principal levels. So how do assistant principals and principals work together to give teachers the tools so that they can do that? And then finally, how do we deal as a district with some of the attendance problems that we have with students? Because usually attendance problems aren't a one-year thing. They're something that happened over multiple years in multiple schools. So how do we clean up that communication? And I'm happy to report that the assistant principals love it. They sometimes feel overlooked because we spend a lot of time with teachers. We spend a lot of time with principals. Assistant principals just sometimes get lost. So, it's going well. I don't know if anybody has any questions about that.
My one question, I just put, it's listed as assistant principals. It sounds like you're including assistant to the principals as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It's all inclusive.
Yeah.
Great. That was my only question.
That's great. Any other questions from any other members? Okay, we're gonna back up and may I have a motion on the walkers and riders. Scott,
So motioned.
second from Jen. All in favor? Accepted. Next agenda item, report of the Assistant Superintendent for Business and Human Resources, Mrs. Perry.
For the committee's approval of warrants this evening, we're gonna do a passover as Kevin has not approved them. So I did not bring them forward. I'll bring them at the next meeting. The committee does have a FY17 budget update. I have no concerns this evening to report, other than what we're currently challenged with, which is following the kindergarten grant and the lack of funding, along with the middle school east utilities, and that would be it as of this evening. Is there any questions on the budget? No? I also have for the committee's view a update on the latest appointments and hires from our previous meeting. No vote is required. Nadine has come in the room because the committee does have an out-of-state travel request, which is a little different than what we typically see from music. So if the committee has any questions, they will be flying this year, which is new. Typically, they travel by bus. And this out-of-state field trip is in Nashville, Tennessee. They have gone as far as Canada.
We have.
So the distance isn't new to them, but the committee has all of the detail in what they're requesting. In March, the cost per student, I believe, was $1,300, $1,350. It will be chaperoned. It is
Nurse.
a nurse. It's, yep, 2 nurses. It is their trip, but they will be flying, which is what's new, and that's why Nadine is here asking for your approval.
A motion? Scott,
Motion.
second from Jim. All in favor? Have a good time.
Have fun.
Come back with a good
That was
story.
quick,
I
Nadine.
enjoyed this meeting very much.
Yeah.
This
Little
is quicker
different,
than
huh?
usual for you, Nadine.
I better go while it's good. Thank you.
Actually,
All right, you're
Nadine, while you're
welcome.
down there, you should look up one of your former students, Jen Parsons,
Uh-huh.
who went to, what
Oh,
the
that's
school?
right. Her
She went-
daughter is in Tennessee.
She actually,
Not you.
I can't think of the name of the school now. Baylor? Baylor? Not Baylor.
Yeah, I think it is Baylor, isn't it?
She graduated,
Yeah.
took a job. She just went back to work for the university. They
Isn't that
hired her.
something? Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know what, as we've been talking about this, I've gotten a few emails from kids that are there. You never, it's it seems so far away, but
Yeah.
We'll do that, thank you.
Yeah. Well,
Thank you,
have a-
everybody.
Have a good time.
Thanks, Nadine.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, next agenda item, subcommittee updates. First one is long-range educational planning, and if you need time, because you met tonight for the first time, I can pass over it, or if you want to speak to it.
I'll let Craig speak to it.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome.
We had our first meeting tonight. It was more of just a general overview of what we're looking to do. We talked about just different goals that we're gonna have to come up with. Obviously, students, faculty, staff, goals around that, facilities, technology, and community engagement. And we also talked about just going building by building and looking at needs and goals around those areas. And hopefully what comes out of it is where we're gonna be in 10 years as a school district, and maybe any facility needs that we have, or and hopefully it spells out exactly what we need to do with middle school east, hopefully. So that's the plan.
Okay. Did you set the date for your next meeting?
It's November, I don't
It's
have the date.
the second, it's 6 o'clock before the second school committee meeting each month.
Thank you.
November
17th
November
maybe?
17th.
Thank you. Okay, marketing and communications.
So-
We did meet, Jody.
Go ahead.
So it's not bad, so. We did schedule, the Realtor Roundtable is scheduled. We have 9 confirmed yeses from local realtors. That'll be on Tuesday, November 1st. There'll be a continental breakfast starting at 8, and then presentation happens after that. Also, the school presentations have been scheduled as well. I think Craig can talk a little more about that for,
The
for the
high
lower
school.
grades.
Yeah, the high school is going down to middle, Stacy Middle School. They're gonna do 2 presentations. They're gonna do a presentation for the 7th grade and a presentation for the 8th grade. And it promises to be a pretty big deal. They're gonna bring all the band and sports, so I'm actually looking forward to it. But then they also scheduled a sports night. I don't remember the date offhand.
Yeah, there was a sports night scheduled, and then the other thing I wanted to mention is that we did have our first youth summit that you sat in on the
Yeah.
other night as well. So that's a kind of a come together of the youth system and the high school program, looking for ways to drive synergy between the high school athletics and the youth programs wherever there are youth teams. So that was a successful meeting. It was, only scheduled for about an hour or so, and it ended up going about an hour and a half. So a lot of dialogue, a lot of discussions. There'll be reoccurring meetings on that on a monthly basis, and, we're looking forward to some traction there as well.
Good.
So, it's good.
It was
We've got a lot
really
of
positive discussion.
Yeah, a lot of positive stuff. So we're actually hearing a lot more, at least from the athletic circle, of a lot of kids are actually reconsidering the school choice conversation. So, I keep a mental count, and we're up to about 15 to 20 kids that have reconsidered leaving
Wow.
the district. So these youth programs, the bridge between the high school and the youth program, these conversations really work. Coach Todd's involvement in coming to the youth games the last couple of weeks creates a huge buzz. Kids get into it. The visibility and the momentum is there. So it's good stuff.
I don't remember the number, but I want to say, was it 30 last year? Stayed in? Wasn't that the number coming up
For
to
the
the high
school?
school from school choice?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what the number.
But I remember it was a big number.
Yeah, it's good.
So-
I mean, you can see that it's
A
turning.
trend.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which is a good thing.
very good.
The other thing that was really reassuring from the other night is there's certainly a desire to collaborate with the high school, but there's also a desire to collaborate among the different youth organizations as well. And there's a lot of low-hanging fruit there that I think will provide immediate benefit to all the youth organizations. They want to start sharing their contact lists so that they communicate with a broader network. They're looking at different economies of scale, whether they they use one web host for their websites, or every organization has to insure themselves, so can they get economies of scale from insurance if they collaborate? So there's a lot of good discussion there, not only about building the connection with the high school, but also building a connection among each other. So it was a really positive meeting.
It was very positive. In fact, even one of the other side conversations that came out of marketing and communications is trying to do the same thing with music and arts, or with music and performing arts. So, we don't want to just focus on athletics. We want to broaden that message so that we can draw those synergies between the high school programs and the lower level programs across the board, in many different areas.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
The other thing is you're continuing to build on this. I love what I've certainly heard some great feedback throughout the community, which is great on the work and the efforts that you guys are putting forth, which is fantastic. And I love that you're going to start to include music in this. Not surprised, Jim. But I think, some of the things like we heard this evening with the STEAM program, I think as you're continuing to build this out, making sure we're highlighting some of those programs. Certainly the hospitality program, I know, is something that we're talking a lot about, and certainly I know it's something that we're including. But some of the other programs that maybe, the hospitality program gets a lot of press because it's new, right? Sort of the shiny penny of our programs right now. But I think focusing on some of the technology programs, some of the other programs that we have here at the high school, I think that will help. Again, the way that I honestly believe, and I know I've said this before, that we're going to be able to sort of put to rest and solve this problem of the school choices. It's really going to be, and forgive the expression, it's going to be death by a thousand cuts. It's not. There's no one thing.
Yeah.
It's
right.
it's athletics. It's music. It's all the other special programs. It's highlighting the AP programs. It's highlighting all of the programs and the full offering that we have at the high school. I think as we continue to do that. So I very encouraged and hear great feedback on the work that you guys have done so far, and look forward to those next steps.
No, you're right, and you're absolutely right. And it is, one victory at a time. It's, it's
Right.
athletics, it's music, it's performing arts, it's, the trip to EMC for the tech ed kids, and now we're looking for an opportunity to go back there for another tour for, women in leadership, and trying to find 10 girls at the lower levels that are interested in technology or technical acumen that we can bring up there and start the tour all over again. You guys will be experts in convergent infrastructure before you know it. So, but you're right, and it is it's one front at a time, and I think we've developed a pretty good engagement model. So as we move forward with that, we'll be able to kind of cut and paste it into other areas. So
Great.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. Jen?
And just to add on to that, when you talked about the whole high school and the offering, so as a parent of an 8th grader, we just received a letter at our house about the high school from Carrie, the high school principal, and it was such a warmly written letter with the letter was on one side, and the other side contained all of the offerings and all kinds of special activities that are available at the high school. And especially when you're thinking about where's your 8th grader going, you don't know anything when it's your first child, and to get that kind of outreach in October of the 8th grade year,
That's great.
I thought was really powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's great.
great job.
If I could just add. So that's exactly the type of communication that we're trying to get across district-wide. So I know Nancy's working on something similar for Stacy. And to your point, Scott, we spent a lot of time a little while ago talking about athletics, but in these meetings we're talking about the full spectrum. We're talking about academics. We're talking about performing arts. We're working on a marketing brochure that will encompass all of that, that hopefully we can share with the realtors, we can share with new families to the district, and we can really start to promote everything that's going on across the school district. So
Yeah, absolutely.
it's a work in progress.
It is. So the idea of the electronic, we want to have hard marketing collateral, and then we want to have an electronic press kit that people can have, that they can share. So a lot of folks, don't have time for the tours. So we've been talking about compensating through video and YouTube, opportunities there as well. So there's a lot of stuff that we're bulleting right now. We're going to be trying to launch and pilot over the course of the school year.
Great, thank you very much. Woodland Elementary School building?
Well, we met last night, and things are going along very well. There's a lot of exterior work still happening on the turf field, which I believe I heard they expect to be done by Thanksgiving.
Yep.
I think that will be wrapped up. I think other than that, there's, a lot of finished up work and addressing a few of the lingering items, but it's still significantly under budget. The town and the building committee has done a great job. on this new school. So the latest focus area is the dedication, which is Sunday, October 30th. That will be from 1 until 3 or 3:30, I guess, in the afternoon. And that'll be an opportunity for the community to come in, hear some of the presentations and speakers regarding this grand elementary school that we now have, and have an opportunity to tour the building. So I think the important points on that we want to remind people is there is very limited parking at Woodland, and for the general public who will be interested in attending, they should drive to the high school, and there will be shuttles driving people back and forth to the high school.
Starting at 12:15.
Thank you. And we have some student involvement in the program, so Nadine will be there with some of the high school students, so it's really very much a community effort, spearheaded by Lena McCarthy and George Schleimer and you, Craig, so
And you.
it should be good.
Not to put you on the spot, do you know who some of the guest speakers are going to be?
Is Ryan Fatman going to be
They're not,
there?
he's gonna be there, he's not gonna speak.
Okay.
Aldo Chakey is chairman and will be the master of ceremonies. Tim Kernan, the principal, will be speaking. I'm sorry,
Mr. Walsh will be speaking.
Jack McCarthy, the MSBA.
Yes.
I don't remember what his title is, but he'll be a rep from the MSBA speaking.
Bill Buckley.
Bill
will be
Buckley,
speaking.
yeah. So
Okay. Good. So a couple
Should be good.
hours. Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next agenda item, any future agenda items? Does anybody have anything they'd like to see on future agendas, or anything that you might have asked for that you haven't seen yet this year?
Mike,
Yeah.
so Melissa's been communicating with Chris Bullock from ClearGov. I think we're gonna try and have him in for the November 17th meeting, if that works for everybody.
Okay. That's the email that you sent out about the company that works with municipalities and schools as far as finances go, or?
Correct, to provide greater transparency around
Right.
finances, but for schools specifically, it's also around performance measures. So they do a lot of analysis there that I think might be helpful to us
Okay.
and to the community.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any old business?
Well, just to add to new business, we probably at some point earlier than later should talk about the superintendent's evaluation. I feel like that got away from us possibly last year. So not that obviously it's brand new into the year, but if we get that on there and we maybe set a time frame for ourselves, so
Okay.
we don't leave Dr. McIntyre hanging
Would we
with
do,
feedback.
so here would be my question. Would we do one this year? Because the evaluation period
Correct,
is from
his first
June,
day.
is from
Mhm.
July 1st to June 30th.
Mm-hmm,
So the evaluation that we'd actually be doing now
mm-hmm.
would be Bob. He
Right.
just started July 1st.
Right, but
So
wouldn't
the
he receive
evaluation-
an evaluation at the end of this year on
At
his
the
performance?
end of this year, so it would actually
Right.
be in the summer of next year.
Yeah,
It'd
he
be
gets a-
after
he
June
gets a-
30th
he
of
gets a
this-
pass on
of
his first year.
2017.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we
Okay.
evaluate
Because
him.
he just started. We'd
Okay.
be evaluating him on the equivalent of basically 90 days worth of work
His first evaluation is
Right.
actually done in his second
in
year.
2017.
okay.
But based on his
Okay.
first year's performance.
Yeah, based
Okay.
on his performance from July 1st of 16 to
Yeah.
June 30th of 17.
Okay,
So it's we would do his performance evaluation in
Because he's gotta
17.
give us his goals and objectives, and then
Right.
that we measure against,
right,
so.
And
okay.
yes,
But
you're
to-
right, it did get away
to-
from us last
Well,
year.
it might.
To Jen's point, though, if we're gonna be evaluating him next summer on this year's performance, we should probably have a discussion with him about what his goals and
Yes.
Right,
expectations are for
absolutely.
this year,
That
right?
would
So
be-
we know what
yeah.
to measure him on. So
Yes.
that I think we need to have.
Absolutely.
Sooner rather
So
than
we're on
later.
the same page, yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. Any old business? We do have an executive session tonight, which requires a roll call. Jen, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Joe, yes?
Yes.
John, yes? I have a motion for adjournment from Scott, second from Jim. Good night, everybody, thank you very much, and have a nice weekend.
Have a good night.